Alright guys, we're going to start reading Rules together, so if you can see that. It is a book about a 12-year-old, so she is your age. Her name's Catherine, and she has a brother with autism. So you're going to find that she's going to experience some things throughout this journey to kind of figure out what normal really is. So some of you might be able to relate, some of you might not, but it's a pretty good book. So we're going to go ahead and start. Okay, this is pages 1 through 20. And I know you don't have the book in front of you, but do your best to listen and follow along. Alright, rules for David. Chew with your mouth closed. Say thank you when someone gives you a present, even if you don't like it. If someone says hi, you say hi back. When you want to get out of answering something, distract the questioner with another question. Not everything worth keeping has to be useful. If the bathroom door is closed, knock, especially if Catherine has a friend over. Sometimes people laugh when they like you, but sometimes they laugh to hurt. No toys in the fish tank. Chapter 1, Follow the Rules. Come on, David. I let go of his sleeve, afraid I'll rip it. When he was little, I could pull my brother behind me if he didn't want to do something, but now David's 8 and too strong to be pulled. Opening the front door, I sighed. My first day of summer vacation is nothing like I dreamed. I had imagined today warm, with seagulls winging across a blue sky, not overcast and damp. Still, I refused to grab my jacket from the peg inside the front door. Umbrella? David asks, a far-off stare in his brown eyes. It's not raining. Come on. Mom said go to the car. David doesn't move. I get his favorite red umbrella. Okay, let's go. I step onto the front porch and slide the umbrella into my backpack with my sketchbook and colored pencils. Let's go to the video store, David says, not moving 1 inch. You're going to the clinic, but if you do a good job, Dad'll take you to the video store when he comes home. The video store is David's favorite place, better than the circus or the fair or even the beach. Dad always invites me to come too, but I say, no thanks. David has to watch all the previews on the store TVs and walk down each row of videos, flipping over boxes to read the parental advisory and the rating. Even on videos Dad would never let him rent. David will say, loud enough for the whole store to hear, rated PG-13 for language and some violence, crude humor. He'll keep searching and reading for boxes and flipping them over and not even seeing the looks people giving us. But the hardest part is when David kneels in an aisle to see the back of the video and a complete stranger is holding in his hand. Dad says, no one cares, Catherine, don't be so sensitive, but he's wrong. People do care. Beside me, David checks his watch. I'll pick you up at 5 o'clock. Well, maybe 5 o'clock, I say. Sometimes Dad's late. David shrieks, 5 o'clock! Shh! I scan the yards around us to see if anyone heard, and my stomach flips. A moving van is parked in front of the house next door, back wide open, half full of chairs and boxes. From inside the truck, 2 men appear carrying a couch between them. My hands tremble, trying to zip my backpack. Come on, David. Mom said go to the car. David stands with his sneaker toes at the top step. It's like a diving board, and he's choosing whether to jump. 5 o'clock, he says. The right answer would be maybe, but David only wants surefire answers, yes and no. And Wednesday at 2 o'clock, but never maybe, or it depends, or worst of all, I don't know. Next door, the movers set the couch on the driveway. If I hurry, I can ask them before they head into the house. Okay, I say, Dad will pick you up at 5 o'clock. That's the rule. David leaps down the steps just as the moving men climb into the van. He might not understand some things, but David loves rules. I know I'm setting up for a problem later because Dad is always late, but I have rules too, and one of mine is, sometimes you gotta work with what you've got. I take David's elbow to hurry him. Let's go past the fence and talk to those men. A little spring mud remains on the underpine near the fence. Only a month ago, puddles were everywhere when Mrs. Bowman called me over to say her house had been sold to a woman with a 12-year-old daughter. I knew you'd be pleased, she said. I told the realtor I have a girl just that age living next door. Maybe they can be friends. A few weeks later, I'd stood on my porch, waving, as Mrs. Bowman's son drove away to her new apartment attached to his house. It feels wrong that Mrs. Bowman's not living in the gray shingled house next door anymore. Her porch looks empty, without her rocking chairs. But I'm tingling with hopes, too. I've always wanted a friend in my neighborhood, and a next-door friend would be best of all. Usually in summer I do lots of things by myself because my friend Melissa spends the whole vacation in California with her dad. This year will be different though. The girl next door and I can do all my favorite summer things, swimming at the pond, watching TV, riding bikes. We could even send a midnight message from our windows using flashlights and Morse code like next door friends do in books. And the best part, David won't have to come since Mom won't have to drive me and pick me up. I bite my teeth together, fighting the memory of my last sleepover at Melissa's. When Mom came to pick me up, David raced around Melissa's kitchen, opening doors, looking for their cellar, even when Mom kept telling him that this was a trailer and trailers don't have cellars. Real friends understand, Mom had said on the ride home, but here's what I understand. Sometimes everyone gets invited except us, and it's because of David. Walking towards the van, I study the moving men. One has a blotchy face and looks all business. The other, younger one, wears a half smile and a dirty t-shirt and jeans. T-shirt man seems friendlier. Remember the rule, I whisper, my hand pushing in David's back to hurry him. If someone says hi, you say hi back. Down the walkway, I run through the conversation possibilities in my head, but that one rule should be enough. There's only one question I need to ask, and then I can take David right to the car. Hi, I call, reaching the corner fence. David flickers his fingers up and down like he's playing the piano in the air. T-shirt man turns around. Do you know when the family's coming, I ask. Is it today? He looks to the other man in the van. When are the Petersons coming? If someone says hi, you say hi back, David yells. That's the rule. Both men stare past me with that familiar look, the wrinkled forehead look that means, what's wrong with this kid? I grab David's hands to stop his fingers. They're coming about 5 o'clock, the red-faced man says. That's what she said. 5 o'clock? David twists under my arm. My wrist kills from being curled backward. I grip the toes in my sneakers to hide the pain. Thanks, I pretend I can see my watch. Wow, look at the time. Sorry, gotta go. Chasing David to the car, I hear heavy footsteps on the van's metal ramp behind me. Thunk, thunk. David covers his ears with his hands. It's 5 o'clock. Let's go to the video store. My own hand squeezes to fist. Sometimes I wish someone would invent a pill so David wake up one morning without autism, like someone waking from a long coma, and he'd say, Geez, Catherine, where have I been? And he'd been a regular brother like Melissa has. A brother who'd give back as much as he took, who I could joke with, even fight with. Someone I could yell at and he'd yell back, and we'd keep going and going until we both yelled ourselves out. But there's no pill, and our quarrels fray instead of the knot, always ending in him crying and me sorry for hurting him over something he can't help. Here's another rule, I open the car door. If you want to get away from someone, you can always check your watch and say, sorry, gotta go. Doesn't always work, but sometimes it does. Sorry, gotta go? David asked, climbing into the car. That's right, I'll add it to your rules. The men carry a mattress, still in plastic, up the walkway next door. Someday soon I'm going to take a plate of cookies up those steps and ring the doorbell. And if the girl next door doesn't have a flashlight, I'll buy her one and turns on easily on and off. Mom says I have to deal with what it is and not get my hopes up, but how else can hopes go up? Wear your seatbelt in the car, David states. That's the rule. You're right. I click the seatbelt across me and open my sketchbook to the back pages. That's where I keep the rules I'm teaching David, so if my someday he'll wake up regular brother wish doesn't ever come true, at least he'll know how the world works and I won't have to keep explaining things. Some of the rules in my collection are easy and always. Say excuse me after you burp. Don't stand in front of the TV when other people are watching it. Flush. But more complicated, sometimes rules. You can yell on a playground, but not during dinner. A boy can take off his shirt to swim, but not his shorts. It's fine to hug Mom, but not the clerk at the video store. And a few more are hints than rules, but matter just as much. Sometimes people don't answer because they didn't hear you. Other times it's because they didn't want to hear you. Most kids don't even consider these rules. Sometimes when they were little, their mom and dad must have explained it all, but I don't remember mine doing it. It seems I've always known these things. Not David, though. He needs to be taught everything. Everything from the fact that a peach is not a funny-looking apple to how having long hair doesn't make someone a girl. I add to my list. If you want to get away from someone, check your watch and say, sorry, gotta go. It's Mom, David yells. It's Mom, David yells. Let's go to the video store. She's on the porch locking our front door. I'll get in trouble if Mom finds out I let him think the wrong thing. I'm depending on you, Catherine. How will he learn to be independent if everyone lets him behave and speak the wrong way? You're going to occupational therapy, I tell David, at the clinic. He frowns. Let's go to the video store. David may not have the sorry gotta go rule down, but he's got this one perfect. If you say something over and over, maybe they'll give in to shut you up. You're going to OT, I say. Maybe. Maybe is all it takes, and David twists towards me as far as his seatbelt allows, his eyes flashing. I cover David's mouth with my hand so the movers don't hear him scream. Don't Run Down the Clinic Hallway, Chapter 2. When David was 3 and started coming to the clinic for occupational therapy, I tagged along because I was too little to stay home. Now I'm 12 and can stay home if I want, but I still like to come. I like talking to Mom on the ride over and back and shopping in the stores across the street, and I love the road between our house and the clinic. It follows the ocean shoreline, and I look for snowy egrets standing stick still in the salt marshes and osprey circling, hunting fish. At high tide, waves sparkle under the wooden bridges, and I can guess the tide before I even see the water, just by closing my eyes and breathing the air through the open car windows. Low tide smells mud black and tangy, but high tide smells clean and salty. The clinic is a few streets from the ocean, and in the summer sometimes, Mom and I walk to the waterfront park while David has his appointment. It's the only time in the week that I get Mom completely to myself and someone else is in charge of David. Mom likes to stay in the clinic waiting room so she can hear if David has a hard time, but I like when we leave because then she doesn't look away from me every time she hears him shriek. At the clinic there's a waiting room and a long corridor of doors to little offices for hearing tests, speech therapy, occupational therapy. David comes on Tuesdays and Thursdays to see Stephanie, a woman with kind eyes and an office full of games, swings, a trampoline, and more balls than I've ever seen outside at a school playground. I think it'd be fun to go with Stephanie and do what she calls playing, but David thinks it's work. I wait while Mom says hello to the other waiting room people, but as soon as Stephanie takes David's hand, I ask, "Can we go to the park? We haven't been since last fall." It's going to rain. Mom sits down on the waiting room couch, and it'll be cold by the water. You didn't even bring your jacket. Can we go shopping then? I glance out the window to the line of stores across the street. My favorite is Elliot's Antiques. From the sidewalk it seems only a door tucked between two downtown shops, but behind the door and up a musty-smelling staircase is a sign, Elliot's Antiques. The whole store is like an attic full of stuff from someone's grandparents once owned, but had no more use for it. Things not quite good enough to keep, but not quite bad enough to throw away. David had a hard time last week, Mom says. I need to make sure Stephanie can handle it. Why don't we read? Mom crosses her legs like she's settled to stay. I slump on the couch beside her and check if anyone looks like they'll mind Mom reading out loud. I haven't been to the clinic since my last school vacation, but I recognize the waiting room people because their appointments are nearly the same time as David's every week. Mrs. Frost, a tiny old lady, reads a magazine in the big chair between the front windows. She even brings her older brother for speech therapy because he had a stroke. The receptionist with the blonde beauty parlor hair types fast on her computer. Carol, a young mother, wearing a big skirt and hoop earrings, sits in the rocking chair near the bookshelf. She leans down, handing her baby with Down syndrome chunky plastic blocks from the toy basket. In the next chair next to the exit, Mrs. Morehouse, Jason's mother, checks her watch. And there's Jason. I'm not sure how old Jason is, maybe 14 or 15, but even though he's almost grown, his mother stays with him in the waiting room. Jason can't go anywhere unless someone pushes his wheelchair. I open my backpack and Mom cleans her glasses on the bottom edge of her shirt. When I was 7, Mom began reading the Harry Potter series to me, and even though I can read it easily to myself now, we still read each new book together. I never think of characters without hearing her voices. I pass her the book. Read quiet. She turns to our chapter and I arrange my colored pencils on the couch next to me. Hunting out the window for something to draw, I consider the line of stores and restaurants across the street, but they look tired in between. In a week or two, the gift shop window will have splashy beach towels and plastic sand buckets, and the hotel will show off the No lit up with a vacancy, and the parking lot will be full of seagulls starting between the cars and perched on the streetlights, screeching for someone to drop a bite of sandwich or a french fry. I wish the time would hurry and there'd be sailboats tying up at the landing and tour buses passing through, and I'd already have the first hellos traded with somebody Peterson, the girl next door. I figure by 5:15 that the first high trading could be over, especially if I just happen to be outside at 5 o'clock when she arrives. I sink back into the vinyl couch cushions, my sketchbook prop against my knees, listening to Mom's voice changing character to character. There's not much new to draw in the waiting room. The same yellow awards cluster the walls, the same books spill off the bookshelf, and the same old toys are heaped in the toy basket. And there are only two people I haven't already drawn, Jason and his mother. I worry that glancing will turn into staring too easy with Jason, and I hate when people stare at David. But Jason's mother's fidget, crossing her legs, picking up magazines, putting them down, smoothing her short, flipped under brown hair, she'd be hard to draw. Mom said Jason started coming to the clinic after Christmas, but the first time I saw him was February vacation. That day I didn't know where to look, so I looked at his feet on his wheelchair footrest. Maybe drawing by maybe by drawing Jason I could look at him easier. Looking closer can sometimes make something beautiful. Sometimes I can change how I feel about something by drawing it. Drawing makes me feel the curves, the shadows, the ins and outs, and the beautiful parts. I solved my hating snakes by drawing their scales, tiny and silvery, overlapping and overlapping until all I saw was how perfect they were. Can't say I'd want a snake crawling across me, but I don't have to run and scream to Dad every time I see a garden snake now. Should I go on? Mom asks. I could stop there. No, keep reading. I turn to a clean page in my sketchbook and swoop at a faint pencil line, beginning the outline of Jason's head, over the top, down his temple and cheek, around the bumps of my jaw and chin, and back to where my line began. I don't know what's wrong with Jason, and it doesn't seem polite to ask. Whatever it is, though, it's something big. There's a tray on Jason's wheelchair, and the tray is a communication book. At first, Jason's book seems like a big blue photograph album, but inside it's full of word cards, not photographs. Jason can't speak, but he turns the pages and touches the cards to tell his mother if he wants a drink, or has to use the bathroom, or is mad about something. Today he's mad, fighting mad. Jason slides his hand across his book, jabbing at the cards. His fingers curl claw-like, and his knuckle raps over one word and another. Yes, I know they had a guitar, Mrs. Morehouse says, fiddling with her earring, but I told you we didn't have time to stop. If I had stopped, you'd have been late for speech. Jason stabs his book. I hope he has a so what, or whatever card. His hand twitches, and he makes a rumbling throat sounds near to growling. Mom shuts our book. Jason's jaw is a little crooked, not as perfect as I drew, but if I draw how it really is, it might look like I made a mistake. Reddish brown waves of hair sweep over Jason's brow. A few wayward strands dangle near his eyes.